Hi, my name is Tom. A couple of months ago, back in March of 2020, I was supposed to sing one Sunday night at the Coffeehouse for the Queen City Balladeers here in Cincinnati. Well, the coronavirus changed all that, like it's changed everything just about for the whole world in the last few months. So Neil has asked me to put together a short video with some songs I was going to do that night, and I'm happy to do that. What I was going to sing about and talk about was how folk music can take us places, far off places, and tell us stories and legends about those places. And that's really fitting since nobody can go anywhere right now with the virus. So I'm going to sing a few songs now that take us far off places and tell us some stories and some legends about those places. We'll start in the desert southwest of the U.S., Texas, Arizona to start with. Now, it's a cold, rainy day here in Ohio, but it's a hot, dusty day in Arizona. And we're walking down a dusty street, and it's real hot. And we get to thinking that a cold beer would go pretty good right now. And we see a place on the next corner that looks like it serves cold beer. So we walk in that bar, and it's a good looking place, friendly place. Lots of people smiling, joking, playing the jukebox. And we walk over to the bar and we get that cold beer. And we turn around and we look at the door behind us, and in walks a cowboy. And he's 2 sizes larger than life. And he comes over to the bar and he starts talking about the way things used to be. In a bar in Arizona on a sultry summer day, a cowboy came in off the road just to pass the time away. He pulled a stool up to the bar, pushed his hat back on his head. I listened to the stories told, to the words the cowboy said. He said, I can tell you stories about the Indians on the plain. Talk about Wells Fargo and the coming of the train. Talk of the slaughter of the buffalo that roam. Speak of all the settlers come out looking for a home. Now the man with the big hat is by. Drink up while the drinking is free. Drink up to the cowboys that dead or died. Drink to my compadres and me. Drink to my compadres and me. Well, his shirt was brown and faded, and his hat was white and black. And the pants that once were blue, well, they were gray and had a pocket gone and back. He had a finger missing from the hand that rolled the smoke. He laughed and talked to cowboy life, but you knew it weren't no joke. He said, I've seen the day so hot my pony could not stand. And if your water bag was dry, don't count upon the land. Them winters, hell, I've seen winters so cold your boots froze in the snow. And your only thought was leaving, but you had nowhere to go. Now the man with the big hat is by. Drink up while the drinking is free. Drink up to the cowboys that dead or died. Drink to my compadres and me. Drink to my compadres and me. Well, he rested easy at the bar, his foot upon the rail. He smiled and talked the times he had while living on the trail. The silence was never broken as his words poured from his lips, as quiet as the 45 he carried on his hip. He said, I've rode the cattle drives from here to San Antonio. 10 days in the saddle, you know, and weary to the bone. I rode from here to Wichita without a woman's smile. And the campfire where I cooked my beans was the only light for miles. Now the man with the big hat is fighting. Drink up while the drinking is free. Drink up to the cowboys that dead or died. Drink to my compadres and me. Drink to my compadres and me. But he rolled another cigarette as he walked toward the door. I heard his spurs a-jingling as his boot heels hit the floor. He tightened up that belt a notch and pulled his hat down on his head. He turned to say goodbye to me, and this is what he said. Now the highlines chase the highways and the fences close the range. To see a working cowboy, well, that's a sight that's mighty strange. A cowboy's life is lonesome, his lot was not the best. Wasn't for the life he led, there wouldn't be no west. Now the man with the big hat is by. Drink up while the drinking is free. Drink up to the cowboys that dead or died. Drink to my compadres and me. Drink to my compadres and me. Man with the Big Hat. That song was written by Steve Frumholtz and first recorded on this album back in the late 1960s, which I bought at the time, 1968, 69, somewhere in there, and I thought it was one of the greatest albums I'd ever heard. Now, our basement flooded a few years ago, and you can see the water damage, but this is what the album looks like, and it was never digitally remastered. I think it's one of the best concept albums I ever heard. You can listen to parts of it on YouTube. Many of the songs on that album, Steve Frumholtz was a great songwriter, really. He became a poet laureate in the state of Texas, which is quite an accomplishment. Texas got some good songwriters. Songs on that album have been covered by Lyle Lovett. That particular song has also been covered by Jerry Jeff Walker. I like Jerry Jeff Walker a lot, but I tried to sing it more like Steve Frumholtz originally recorded it, just out of respect for that album, which again, Frumux was the name of the pair group, Steve Frumholtz and his friend Dan recorded that in the late 60s. It was never digitally remastered, but if you want to hear a great album, Frumholtz, Frumux is the name of their group, From Here to There. So let's go from the desert Southwest up to Montana. Many of you saw the movie A River Runs Through It. There were two brothers in that movie, of course, Brad Pitt and his brother. Well, his brother was Norman McLean in the movie. And Norman McLean wrote that story. He wrote two books. He wrote A River Runs Through It, and he wrote Young Men and Fire. Young Men and Fire was a story about a forest fire in northern Montana in 1949, August 1949. Norman McLean, in addition to being a man of letters, was also quite the woodsman. He spent time as a young man in the woods. The movie was all about fly fishing, but he also worked summers for the Forest Service, and he became very interested in forest fires. So the fire in August 49 is known as the Man Gulch Fire, and 13 smoke jumpers died in that fire. 15 jumped, 13 died. One of the survivors was the crew chief, Wagner Dodge. Now, the way he survived, he used a technique that was not taught at the time. He lit a fire in some high grass that burned, and that became black, and of course it can only burn once. And he laid down and he tried to get his crew to join him in the fire, and they thought he was crazy. In reality, the song makes it sound that they just cursed at him. There was a lot of geography involved. It was spread. They were spread out over quite a ways, and a fire makes a lot of noise, so they probably never even heard him calling. But he laid down in this fire, and he survived, and 13 of his crew members didn't make it. The song is pretty accurate, takes some liberties with some of the details. That's okay. So when I introduce this song, I like to imagine that you're trying, like you to imagine, you're trying to write that book that Norman MacLean wrote about the fire, and you want to interview Wag Dodge. Wag Dodge came down with Hodgkin's disease years later and died from that. And if you can imagine going to a hospital room and trying to interview him about what happened at that fire. And that's the way, if you can listen to the song as you're trying to listen to Wag tell you about what happened at that fire. My name is Dodge, but then you knew that. It's written on the chart there at the foot end of the bed. They think I'm blind, that I can't read it. But I've read it, every word, and every word of it says death. So confession, is that the reason that you came? Get it off my chest before I check out of the game. Since you mentioned it, well, there's 13 things I'll name. 13 crosses high above the cold Missouri waters. August 49, North Montana. Was the hottest day on record. The forest tinder dry, lightning strikes in the mountains. I was the crew chief at the jump base. I prepared the bows to fly. I picked the drop zone. C-47 comes in low. Feel the tap on our legs. It tells us go. See the circle of the fire down below. 15 of us dropped above the cold Missouri waters. I gauged the fire, well, I'd seen bigger. So I ordered them the side hill. We'd fight it from below. We'd have our backs to the river. We'd have it licked by the morning, even if we took it slow. But the fire crown, it jumped the valley just ahead. There was no way down, headed for the ridge instead. Too big to fight it, we'd have to fight that slope instead. Flames one step behind above the cold Missouri waters. The sky turned red, the smoke was boiling. 200 yards to safety, death was 50 yards behind. I don't know why, well, I just did it. I struck a match to waist-high grass, running out of time. I tried to tell them, step into this fire that I've set. We can't make it, this is the only chance you'll get. But they cursed me, headed for the ridge instead. I lay face down and prayed above the cold Missouri waters. And when I rose like a phoenix, in that world reduced to ashes, there were none but two survived. I stayed the night. And one day after, carried bodies to the river, wondering how I stayed alive. 13 stations of the cross to mark their fall. I've had my say, well, I'll confess to nothing more. I'll join them now, those that left me long before. 13 crosses high above the cold Missouri waters. 13 crosses high above the cold Missouri shore. Cold Missouri waters, about the Man Gulch fire. So when I was young, I remember going with my family to the northern reaches of New York State, Adirondack Mountain area, to Lake George. Lake George itself is a pretty touristy area. It's in a beautiful setting. It's a beautiful lake. It's a large lake. And I remember being captivated by the history up there. And of course, as a little kid, we went to a recreation of a fort called Fort William Henry. And, you know, we got cap guns and did a little kid stuff. But it was still fascinating history. I got older and went hiking and canoeing in the Adirondack Mountains, and still was fascinated by the beauty and the history of the area. So this next song tells the story of a battle that occurred in that area. Now, we know it's true. Most of it's true. We know there was a Major Duncan Campbell, and we know that he died in this battle in 1758, in July 1758. And we know that a ghost appeared to him years earlier, telling him that he, Duncan, would die at a far-off place with a strange-sounding name. We know all that's true. Robert Louis Stevenson even wrote a poem about it. So we know that's true. Duncan Campbell was a major in the 42nd Highlanders, which today is known as the Black Watch, the famed Black Watch unit in the British Army. So that day, the French and the Indians had fortified the fort at Ticonderoga, what the Indians called it Ticonderoga. The French had another name. And the English forces just did a frontal assault, and the 42nd Highlanders took terrible losses that day, 300 casualties, if my history is correct. So it was a terrible day. Now, the part that's not true in this song is they probably didn't sing Scotland the Brave because the song wasn't written until many years later, but it sounds good in the song. So that's why it's stuck there, and I hope you enjoy the song. It's called Piper's Refrain, about the battle in the French and Indian War in July 1758. Well, I'll tell it to you as they told it to me, in the glow of the campfire burning. By the banks of the waters where we sported and played, they once faced the fury of battle. And it's up to the Champlain come the Highland Brigade, the pipes and the drummers played Scotland the Brave. Ah, but when they sailed home, the piper's refrain was, oh, how cruel the volley. To one Duncan Campbell it came in a dream that he'd meet his fate where he never had been, where the blue waters roll and the stick-a-bush tear. It's travel well, Duncan, I'll wait on you there. For the French and the Indian have challenged our king, to a soldier like Duncan no need to explain. For it's many the time I've traveled the wave to face my fate in the fire. And it's up to the Champlain come the Highland Brigade, the pipes, the drummers played Scotland the Brave. Ah, but when they sailed home, the piper's refrain was, oh, how cruel the volley. From Fort William Henry the boats did shove off to the north of Lake George in the morning, to the place the Frenchmen called Carillon and the Indians Ticonderoga. But the word struck Duncan like a thunderbolt there. Everyone knew of the warning. So give us a tune to remember me by, for tomorrow I'll not be returning. And it's up to the Champlain come the Highland Brigade, the pipes and the drummers played Scotland the Brave. Ah, but when they sailed home, the piper's refrain was, oh, how cruel the volley. When the gunpowder flashed, the Highlanders died, never again to walk the hillside. In the wilderness green, in the sun and the rain, it's here they're forever remain. And it's up to the Champlain come the Highland Brigade, the pipes,
the drummers played Scotland the Brave. Ah, but when they sailed home, the piper's refrain was, oh, how cruel the volley.
Now I've told it to you as they told it to me, of one Duncan Campbell and the Highland Brigade. While the campfire crackles and the summertime wanes, through the mist on the water, it's the piper's refrain. And it's up to the champagne of the Highland Brigade. The pipes, the drummers played Scotland the Brave. Ah, but when they sailed home, the piper's refrain was, oh, how cruel the volley. Piper's refrain. So I'm gonna close this short set with a song I first learned as a poem in 8th grade. And it had everything. It was, English teachers like it because it teaches metaphor and imagery and alliteration. And, you know, as a poem to get kids' attention, it's got everything you would have in a TV miniseries. It's got a dashing man on horseback. It's got a beautiful innkeeper's daughter. It's got violence. It's got everything you would put in a successful TV miniseries. So I remember learning The Highwayman by Alfred Lord Noyes in 8th grade, and probably the first poem I ever really thought about liking as a kid in 8th grade. A few years later, I remember hearing it put to music by Phil Oakes and his I Ain't Marching Anymore. It was sandwiched in between all those protest songs, and it seemed a little out of place, but I think Phil, kind of like a lot of us, were just captivated by the imagery in the song, and it was just such a wonderful story. And it is it's just a terrific it's a terrific poem, and like a lot of these songs, it tells of a legend, and kind of like at the piper's refrain, where it talked about through the mist on the water, here comes the piper's refrain. The highwayman talks about the highwayman returning at the end of the song. The wind was a torrent of darkness among the gusty trees. The moon was a ghostly galleon tossed upon cloudy seas, and the road was a ribbon of moonlight over the purple moor. And the highwayman came riding, riding, riding. Yes, the highwayman came riding up to the old inn door. Over the cobbles he clattered and crashed in the barking yard, and he tapped with his whip on the window, but all was locked and barred. So he whistled a tune to the window, and who should be waiting there but the landlord's black-eyed daughter, Bess, the landlord's daughter, plaiting a dark red love knot into her long dark hair. One kiss, my bonny sweetheart, for I'm after a prize tonight, but I shall be back with the yellow gold before the morning light. Yet if they press me sharply or harry me through the day, then look for me by moonlight, watch for me by moonlight, and I'll come to thee by moonlight, though hell should bar the way. Well, he did not come at the dawning, no, he did not come at the noon, nor out of the tawny sunset before the rise of the moon, when the road was a gypsy's ribbon looping the purple moor. Oh, a red-coat troop came marching, marching, marching. King George's men came marching
landlord's daughter. With many a sniggering jest, they bound the musket beside her, with the barrel beneath her breast. Now he could watch, and they kissed her. She heard the dead man say, "Oh, look for me by moonlight. Watch for me by moonlight, and I'll come to thee by moonlight, though hell should bar the way. Look for me by moonlight, with meets ringing clear. Watch for me by moonlight, were they deaf that they did not hear? For he rode on the gypsy highway. She breathed one final breath, and her finger moved in the moonlight. Her musket shattered the moonlight, and it shattered her breast in the moonlight, and warned him with her death. Well, he turned, he spurred off to the west, for he did not know who stood out with her black hair flowing down, drenched in her own red blood. No, not till the dawn had he heard it, and his face grew gray to hear how Bess, the landlord's daughter, the landlord's black-eyed daughter, had watched for her love in the moonlight, and died in the darkness there. Back he spurred like a madman, shrieking a curse to the sky, with the white road smoking behind him, and his rapier brandished high. Blood red were his spurs in the golden moon, wine red his velvet coat, when they shot him down on the highway, down like a dog on the highway, and he lay in his blood on the highway, with a bunch of lace at his throat. Yet still on a winter's night, they say, when the wind is in the trees, and the moon is a ghostly galleon, tossed upon cloudy seas, and the road is a ribbon of moonlight, looping the purple moor. Oh, the highwayman comes riding, riding, riding. Yes, the highwayman comes riding up to the old inn door. Thank you for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed our little trip to far-off places and some stories and legends. And I hope you stay well, and I hope to see you all soon. Thank you.